There is a kind of woman walking the earth right now. She's not loud, but when she speaks, atmospheres change. She's not chasing anything, yet things are drawn to her. This woman is not waiting for validation, applause, or approval. Her faith is so anchored in heaven that when she takes one step, mountains shift. Not because she commands them, but because they recognize the authority she carries. She does not walk into rooms to be seen. She walks in with such clarity, such purpose, that the unseen world adjusts itself before she utters a word. This woman has discovered something that very few ever do: the power of emotional and spiritual detachment, not because she doesn't care, but because she has learned to care from the throne room. She has sat long enough in silence to know what truly matters. And because of that, she cannot be manipulated by praise or paralyzed by criticism. You see, when your faith is established in divine purpose, your emotions are no longer the steering wheel. They become indicators, not navigators. She has stopped confusing feelings for direction. Her GPS is the voice of God. She doesn't move to prove anything to anyone. Her steps are prophetic. Every time she moves, it is because something eternal has already shifted. She does not ask mountains to move. They move because they know who sent her. They move because her life is not her own. And when your life is in God's hands, He makes creation obey you the same way it obeyed Him. Some women walk with wounds that they wear like armor, but this one, she walks with healing in her shadow. Because she let go. She let go of the need to control outcomes. She let go of the need to be understood. She let go of attachments to seasons, people, and places God has already moved on from. And that detachment is not bitterness, it is freedom, it is clarity, it is dominion, because she knows that when you are still clinging emotionally to what God is done with, you cannot carry what God is about to release. She has learned to bless people and still walk away, to love and not be entangled, to serve and not be drained, because her source is not people, her source is presence. And when your oil comes from the throne room, you don't need attention, you carry assignment. This is why the enemy can't read her, because she's unpredictable. She's not moved by what she sees. She's not easily offended. She's not easily shaken. She's not desperate for connection. She is the connection, the divine bridge between what was and what must come. This woman doesn't need to announce her arrival. Heaven does it for her, because heaven recognizes obedience, not volume. When she steps, she's not trying to fit in. She is establishing territory. She is carrying the instructions of the king. Her faith is not rooted in emotion. It is rooted in execution. That is why she doesn't crumble in transition, because she understands that every wilderness is a womb. Every delay is a design. Every silence is strategy. The world may wonder how she keeps rising, how she keeps standing, how she keeps smiling while letting go. But what they don't know is she died a long time ago. She died to the need to be liked. She died to the addiction to performance. She died to the illusion of control. And what is left now is a woman resurrected in purpose, fueled by revelation and governed by wisdom. That is why mountains shift, because they recognize when God is in the room, wrapped in the steps of a surrendered woman. Faith is not a reaction, it is a position. A woman whose faith shifts mountains does not respond to what she sees, she stands on what she knows. There is a difference between reacting and ruling. Reaction means you're being led by circumstance, but position means you've already made a decision before the storm showed up. This woman doesn't wait for the situation to prove itself before she believes. She believes because her spirit has already received instruction from a higher realm. She knows that truth doesn't begin when things work out. It begins when God speaks. When faith becomes a position, not a reaction, you no longer adjust your belief to match the chaos around you. You become consistent in an inconsistent world. That's why this woman doesn't panic when others do. She doesn't fold when the doors close. She doesn't cry over closed chapters. Because her faith is not based on signs, it is based on covenant. And covenant is not emotional, it is eternal. A reactive woman is driven by what people say, how they behave, what happens around her. But a positioned woman is driven by conviction. She's already anchored. She has already built her house on the rock. So the winds come, the waves hit, but she doesn't shift because her foundation isn't feeling its revelation. That's why her very presence carries power. She doesn't speak faith. She is faith in motion. People wonder why things move when she moves. It's because heaven has already gone before her. When your faith becomes a position, the supernatural starts to become your normal. You don't chase signs, you walk in them. You don't beg for favor, you attract it. Because your belief is not waiting on results, it's producing them. Spiritual authority flows from alignment with purpose, not emotion. A woman who walks in true authority does not draw her strength from how she feels. She draws it from knowing who she is and why she's here. Emotion is temporary, but purpose is eternal. When you operate from emotion, your strength fluctuates with the seasons. But when you operate from purpose, your presence becomes consistent, unshaken, and deeply rooted in divine identity. This woman has learned that feelings cannot lead her into destiny. She does not base her decisions on mood swings or temporary discomfort. She understands that spiritual maturity means ruling over your emotions, not being ruled by them. That doesn't mean she's disconnected, it means she's disciplined. Her detachment isn't apathy, it's alignment. She's not detached because she doesn't feel, she's detached because she's chosen to feel from a higher place. Authority in the kingdom is not given to the emotionally unstable. It's entrusted to those who are rooted in clarity, stability, and obedience. That's why this woman walks in a room and shifts the environment. She's not performing. She's not pretending. She is simply aligned with heaven's design for her life. She knows that when she is in position, authority will naturally flow through her words, her silence, her decisions, and her presence. She doesn't argue for her place, she walks in it. She doesn't have to fight to be heard, because when a person is truly aligned with purpose, their silence speaks louder than noise. Her authority doesn't come from being aggressive, it comes from being accurate. She has made peace with the fact that she will be misunderstood, but she will not misstep. Because emotion can cloud vision, but purpose brings precision. When a woman is emotionally detached from outcomes, she becomes a vessel for divine outcomes. She no longer clings to how things should happen. She simply obeys and trusts the result to God. This kind of woman walks in a dimension where her obedience is more important than her comfort. She surrenders the blueprint, the timing, and the applause. She is not attached to the outcome because she is committed to the instruction. And in that detachment, she becomes unstoppable. Most people are emotionally tied to the result, so their peace rises and falls with progress. But not this woman. She's not trying to force anything into existence. She understands that if it is God's will, it will unfold. She is free from anxiety because she's free from control. And that freedom is what makes her powerful. Because when you are not obsessed with the outcome, you can obey with a clean heart. You're not doing it for approval. You're not doing it to be seen. You're doing it because you were told. She knows that her job is not to manipulate the mountain, but to move in faith. The outcome is God's. The obedience is hers. And because she's detached from the desire to prove or please, she is available for God to use at full capacity. Emotional detachment, in this sense, is not a lack of care. It is deep trust. It is saying, even if it doesn't go the way I thought, I trust that God is doing what's best. This kind of woman cannot be broken by disappointment because her identity is not tied to results. It is rooted in relationship. Her surrender makes her dangerous to the kingdom of darkness because the enemy cannot bribe or threaten someone who has already let go. Faith is not anchored in the visible, but in the eternal. Mountains move because heaven has already spoken. A woman who carries this kind of faith doesn't wait to see before she believes. She walks as if the invisible is more real than what's standing in front of her. She knows that what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. So when she moves, it's not because things look favorable, it's because she heard something in the spirit that overrides what she sees in the natural. This woman doesn't need confirmation from circumstances. She needs confirmation from the throne room. Her ears are tuned to the frequency of heaven, and once she hears a word, she considers it done. Mountains don't move because she's strong. They move because her obedience is in alignment with divine instruction. Heaven has already released the authority, so when she steps, creation must respond. She refuses to live by sight because sight will lie to you. Sight will show you obstacles, but faith shows you the outcome. Sight will focus on impossibilities, but faith locks in on promises. This is why she's not overwhelmed when things seem delayed or difficult. She remembers what was spoken. She holds on to it like an anchor, and it keeps her from drifting in seasons of confusion or chaos. People may question why she's still standing, still believing, still moving forward when nothing seems to be working. But they don't understand. She's not operating on what they see. She's moving based on a word she received before the storm even started. And that word has become her compass. That's why mountains don't intimidate her. They bow to the word that was spoken over her life. They don't shift because of who she is. They shift because of what she carries. A purpose-driven woman does not negotiate with fear because her yes is to God, not to circumstance. She has already made a decision that fear cannot override. When fear comes to whisper doubt, she doesn't entertain it because her agreement has already been given to something greater. She understands that the presence of fear does not mean the absence of purpose. It simply means she must choose who she will obey, fear or faith. This woman has reached a place in her walk with God where fear is no longer a conversation, it's a defeated voice. She does not sit at the table with fear and ask for its opinion. She moves because she was told to move. She steps out even when the ground looks uncertain because her feet are not standing on conditions, they're standing on covenant. And once you've said yes to God, your only responsibility is to follow through, not figure it out. That strength is not the absence of emotion, it's the presence of conviction. She might feel afraid, but she's not controlled by it. She doesn't pray for fear to leave before she acts. She acts while fear watches her leave it behind, because fear is not her master. Fear is a liar that tries to sound logical. But purpose is louder. Purpose calls her beyond comfort zones, beyond safe decisions, beyond public approval. This woman doesn't wait for the odds to be in her favor. She understands that the assignment is greater than the risk. She's not loyal to her feelings. She's loyal to her mission. That's why her steps are bold even when her heart beats faster, because her yes was never rooted in convenience. It was rooted in obedience. And once you surrender to divine instruction, fear becomes irrelevant. Emotional detachment is the ability to hear God clearly without interference from human validation. A woman who has mastered this has silenced the voices that once shaped her identity. She no longer needs applause to feel worthy, nor does she fear silence as rejection. Her value is not determined by how others respond to her. It is defined by who sent her. She has learned that clarity from God often requires distance from people's opinion. And that distance is not isolation, it is consecration. When she is emotionally entangled with the need to be accepted, her discernment becomes clouded. But when she is detached, her spirit becomes sharp, her ears tuned, and her direction clear. Emotional detachment does not mean she is numb, it means she is focused. It means she no longer gives authority to voices that didn't create her. She understands that human affirmation cannot compete with divine revelation. That's why she can walk away from environments where her value is questioned and still maintain her posture of purpose. This woman does not seek validation because she is already approved. She does not ask for permission to believe what God has spoken. And because of this, her decisions are not delayed by fear of misunderstanding. She doesn't hesitate because her confirmation doesn't come from people. It comes from presence. Her emotional detachment protects the purity of her assignment. When emotions are too entangled with people's responses, obedience becomes distorted. She knows that sometimes the clearest word from God will come in seasons of solitude. So she does not panic when the crowd is quiet. She does not compromise when the support is missing. Her clarity comes from consecration, not consensus. And in that detachment, she hears heaven with precision and moves without hesitation. God often hides his strongest warriors in stillness until their steps are mountains in motion. A woman called by heaven to shift atmospheres is not always immediately visible. Her process is often wrapped in silence, in waiting, in hiddenness. While others rush into platforms and performance, she is being molded in the quiet. She is not forgotten. She is being formed. And that formation cannot be rushed, because what she's called to carry requires depth, not just visibility. The stillness is not inactivity, it is divine strategy. It is where God sharpens her ears to hear him alone. It's where he trains her not to move unless heaven moves. In the stillness, she learns timing, precision, and obedience. She's not rehearsing how to be impressive, she's learning how to be impactable. Her silence is not weakness, it's preparation. God is depositing wisdom, strength, resilience, and discernment in the shadows of her waiting season. While others seek attention, she seeks alignment. And when the time comes, she doesn't need to announce her emergence. Her obedience will do that for her. When she finally moves, it won't be a small step, it will be a heavenly disruption. Because her steps are not personal, they are prophetic. Her silence was never about being overlooked. It was about being refined until she was heavy enough in the spirit to carry authority without arrogance. This is why she does not rush her process. She understands that the more stillness she allows, the greater the shift she'll cause. When she moves, it won't be emotional, it will be eternal. Mountains won't move because she's trying. They'll move because the preparation is now complete. God reveals his power through those who are willing to be hidden long enough for him to build something unshakable within. When a woman refuses to be defined by her past or by people, her steps become prophetic decrees. She no longer walks with hesitation, looking over her shoulder for permission or validation. She walks forward with conviction because her identity is rooted in divine truth, not public opinion. Her past may have tried to label her, confine her, or silence her, but she has chosen to believe what heaven says about her instead. That shift in identity transforms her steps into declarations. Each move she makes becomes a manifestation of God's intention. This woman understands that if she keeps allowing people or past failures to dictate her worth, she will never step into her assignment with authority. So she releases herself from every title others try to place on her: rejected, too much, not enough, unworthy. She lays them down and picks up the only name that matters: chosen, called, sent. She has broken covenant with the need to be understood. And in doing so, she has entered a covenant with divine purpose. Her steps now speak louder than her words. When she walks away from dysfunction, it is not just a decision, it is a declaration that she is no longer available for cycles that dishonor her destiny. When she steps into new territory, she is not just changing environments, she is announcing heaven's will in that space. Her movement is not reactionary, it is revelatory. God uses her life to send messages the enemy cannot ignore. Because she has divorced herself from being defined by trauma or titles others gave her, her steps carry supernatural clarity. She moves like one who knows where she's going, and that confidence is not arrogance, it is alignment. Her life becomes a scroll unfolding, every step revealing more of God's plan. There is a power that flows from a woman who no longer needs to explain herself. Her silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. She has learned that purpose does not require constant justification. When you know who you are and why you're here, you don't waste energy trying to convince others of your calling. She understands that revelation cannot always be explained to people who were never part of the conversation God had with her spirit. This woman is not arrogant. She's anchored. She doesn't have time to argue with those who misunderstand her path. She is too focused on fulfilling her assignment to be distracted by the need to be accepted. She has made peace with being misread, and that peace has set her free. Her clarity has become more valuable than her comfort, and her obedience is louder than any explanation she could give. She knows that God didn't give her the vision in a group chat. He spoke it in the secret place, in whispers too sacred to be debated. And because of that, she walks in a quiet boldness. She's not loud, but she's lethal. Every step she takes is calculated, intentional, and spirit-led. People may not understand it now, but she's not living for applause. She's living for impact. This woman's silence intimidates the insecure because it reveals who's truly confident. She doesn't announce every move, but when she moves, things shift, because true power is not in how much noise you make, it's in how much weight you carry. And weight comes from walking with God long enough to know that explanations are temporary, but fruit is eternal. She lets her results speak. She lets her transformation testify, because when heaven endorses you, you don't need man to understand you. A woman who learns to let go of what she cannot control becomes a force of stability in an unstable world. Her strength is not in how tightly she holds on, but in how freely she surrenders what doesn't belong to her. She no longer tries to manage outcomes, people's opinions, or timelines. Instead, she places them in God's hands and keeps her hands on the assignment. This kind of release isn't weakness, it's wisdom. She understands that the weight of the world was never hers to carry. She has been through enough to know that control is often a disguise for fear. And fear breeds frustration, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. So she traded control for trust. And in that exchange, she found peace. The kind of peace that doesn't make sense to the world. She stopped rehearsing conversations in her head. She stopped trying to make people see her value. She stopped fighting for things that don't feed her purpose. And in that release, she reclaimed her joy. This woman's faith is strong because it no longer depends on what she can predict. She has accepted that sometimes the door closes for her protection. That delay is not denial, that rejection is redirection. And that God's plan will always be better than hers, even when it doesn't feel like it in the moment. She has learned to walk in flow, not force. She's free because she is detached. Not emotionally cold, but spiritually anchored. She loves deeply, but she holds loosely. She gives fully, but she expects nothing in return. And that posture makes her unshakable. Because what can man do to a woman who has already surrendered everything? She walks in confidence not because she has all the answers, but because she trusts the one who does. So now, look at this woman, not just with admiration, but with awareness. She is not a myth. She is not just a story. She is the product of surrender, obedience, and divine transformation. Her faith shifts atmospheres because her life is no longer her own. She is emotionally detached but spiritually connected. She is quiet, but her presence thunders. She is hidden, but her steps cause mountains to tremble. This is the kind of woman the earth groans for. This is the kind of woman hell fears. And this is the kind of woman heaven moves with. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to be perfect to be chosen. You simply need to let go of what was, stand in what is, and walk boldly into what will be. When you become emotionally free, spiritually aligned, and purpose-driven, you stop chasing favor, and favor starts chasing you. The world does not shift for the anxious, it shifts for the anchored. So rise up, woman of purpose. Let go of what they said. Release what you lost. Detach from what was never yours to carry, and walk. Walk like the ground beneath you was waiting for your steps. Walk like every mountain is under divine instruction to move the moment you show up. Walk like heaven has gone before you, because it has.